Hey everybody, welcome to Forge Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. This is a very special 200th episode, and we have 2 codexes to go over. And when I say go over, it's cool. You know it's going to be impossible to do it in an hour, and you just got to let us fanboy over this stuff right now and tell you about some of the new things and the stuff that you can expect when you get them in your hands. And there's some neat stuff here. I'm joined today by Chris Morgan.
Hey.
And Ricky Addington.
I have nothing witty to introduce myself with.
We are the Battle Lost Souls podcast. Let's get right into it. Let's start with Grey Knights. The Grey Knights, I think people were at least genuinely happy with some of the stuff in the index, especially things like Dread Knights. And now there's going to be the opportunity to take a Grand Master in a Dread Knight. Now, that's not new. That was, I think that's been spoiled on the internet for a little bit now. But it's still a very, very neat option.
I love the idea of a Grand Master and a Dread Knight because it feels like the person who would do the most damage should have the best rig. You know what I'm saying?
Step one when Gilliman came out of his coffin or whatever, is like, find me something I can ride in. So were I a Grandmaster of the Grey Knights, I would be the first thing I also commandeered is, hey, give me one of those things.
Well, it makes sense. Give your best guy the best gear and, let him do the best work. So I'm pretty happy about it. Is he an HQ? I'm assuming he's going to be an HQ.
A Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight is 190 points. This is not including war gear. He's 190 points base. A regular Dread Knight is 130 points base. He does have the 2+ save. He's got 12 wounds, strength 6, toughness 6, movement of 8. He does have the Dread Knight teleporter. I mean, he's got all the Dread Knight stuff. Plus, he's a Grandmaster.
Now, the 12 wounds is the part that makes it kind of interesting for me because you, at that point, have now crossed that threshold of, can I get sniped by 8 las cannons?
He does have a 4+ invulnerable save, and he's got a ballistic skill 2, weapon skill 2+, 5 attacks. Plus, you can take all the Dread Knight special weaponry for him.
How about psychic powers? Can he cast more psychic powers than a regular Dread Knight?
He can manifest 2 psychic powers in each phase.
Does he have rights of banishment or not?
He does have, it's a good question. He does have rights of banishment.
Oh,
yeah.
I wanted to see some full-on smite action there, but hey,
look,
we'll take it.
You're going to get some full-on smite action. There's plenty of smite manipulation here in this book.
You could say that Paul Murphy is smitten.
There's something very satisfying. I didn't know if smite in general was going to be just kind of become, too common, the fact that everyone can get it. But there's a certain amount of satisfaction of smiting someone into the ground.
Not for me, because I'm always playing against my buddy who plays Grey Knights, and it doesn't feel satisfying to me.
Well, that's the trick of smite, is that it actually reaches into your soul.
It really does.
It touches a part of you.
Yeah, he likes it. He smiles when he does it, so I assume that it's fun for him. In the meantime, my custodies are just racking up wounds, and I'm just sitting there watching 270 points come off a table. But hey, good for him. Grey Knights, yay.
Well, look, Grey Knights are supposed to be intimidating. They're supposed to be powerful, and they're supposed to be good psychers. And like Grandmaster Voldus doesn't disappoint. He can manifest 3 psychic powers a turn. He also has the rights of banishment. He can teleport on the table. Got a 4+ invulnerable save. He has 6 wounds. Not to be undershadowed, is also Caldor Drago with 7 wounds. So these are powerful characters here that you can choose from in Grey Knight. And Drago is an HQ choice. I believe he's the same that way in the index as well, but he's definitely an HQ, not a Lord of War choice.
And Drago, they're no joke, man. Drago will gut you. I don't care what you are. He's going to do work. He's, strength 8, AP -4 with that sword, 3 damage, no rolls. It's no D3. It's straight up 3 damage on every hit.
With his 5 attacks.
5 attacks hitting on 2s, re-rolling. I just told my buddy one time,
suck.
I was like, don't even roll it to hit. Just assume that it hits and let's move on from there. Save the time, because a 1 in 36 chance of him missing with his sword that is going to wreck your face. He's pretty okay. So I like him. And I like that he's an HQ now instead of having to, suck up a Lord of War slot just to put him in there.
I didn't feel so good about like Dante and Seth being Lords of War, but I felt Drago at the time might have crossed into that Lord of War range. But, it is good. He fits so much, if you're trying to get on some command points, he fits better into some of those, better command point modifier detachments.
And that's a difference between this edition and the last edition, right? Like for one thing, I thought that the single model Lords of War, the infantry dudes, was an attempt to let people have these models, and the HQs needed to support them because of the way that force organization was in the past. Now where it's so flexible and you can have so many HQs, why bother having them as Lords of War?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Although for the points, Drago is coming in at 240 points. Voldus is 190. I'm not sure which one is better for
Drago.
Well, I mean, no, Drago's good, but Voldus has the Demon Hammer. That's his special, the Malus Angrium.
Argyrum, or however it is.
Argyrum. Malleus Argyrum. I'm saying it that way. That's how I'm saying it.
But it's a 3 damage weapon at minus 3 AP.
With no -1 to hit. That's a big thing to remember there.
He's also got 5 attacks hitting on 2s. Mm-hmm. I guess depending on what your strategy is, Drago has the better invulnerable save because he has the Storm Shield.
Yeah, and Voldus is just putting out more psychic powers. So
he does have 3 psychic powers, and can deny 3 psychic powers as well.
Yeah, I mean he's good. Don't get me wrong. Like my buddy runs Drago and Voldus and Castle and Crow. So it's like, dear Lord, what do I go after? It's like it's okay. Try to kill this and shut down the D6 smite, and try to kill Voldus so he can stop doing this, and this, and then hopefully I've killed enough so that when Drago gets close enough to charge me, I can deal with him at that point. Fun fact, I did kill him in Overwatch with 2 las cannons the other day. It felt great. But anyway, I like them.
Not to brag, but
mileage may vary, but yeah. I like Drago and Voldus. I think they're right there with each other as far as strength, but it's just different. And they definitely are going to – you can go with either one depending on how your list is built and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And of course, the Grandmaster and the Dread Knight, I think that's going to be a fun choice for people, if only because you couldn't do it before.
Yeah. And let's see here. You take your, which one is the all elites? Wait, are Dread Knights heavy?
Dread Knights themselves are heavy, yeah.
Right, Dreadnoughts are elite. So, what? Take the Grandmaster and a Dread Knight, and then just take a whole army of Dread Knights, and you can do that now. And that's... Somebody's gonna do it. It's going to be fun.
Didn't somebody already do that? One of my close friends.
I think.
Oh yes, yeah. Somebody in my club, the Runway Kids, had a standout army at the ATC.
That thing wrecked my face.
JP, we love you, man.
I don't. I was mad at that. That list good in mine.
Well, that was in your early phases. Think of how that prepared you for all your victories there at the ATC. Now, Crow is Crow. He's a great character. I think that's about the way
that was the least reassuring you could ever sound.
I mean, I wanted to talk about the novel. David Annandale, he's a cool person. He's got an amazing background, and he's written all these cool stories. Some of the some for characters near and dear to us. So, I mean, Crow, check out his lore. It's awesome, but
I love his lore.
It translates into this sword that doesn't do anything.
Can I just say real quick, I never, ever, ever want you to sell me for a blind date, because that was like he's got a great personality that just came out of there, because it was like, Crow, yeah, good lore on him. Yeah, good story. Yeah.
But he will smite your pants off. Look,
he will totally smite your pants off. He will do that. Crow is fantastic for smite, but dear Lord in heaven.
He does have an Iron Halo, so he's a power armor guy that has a 4+ invulnerable save, and he's got 5 wounds, so he's difficult to dig out. So, if you're trying to go with like a budget character in the HQ slot, he is 125 points. There are some cheaper, but then you've got to buy the war gear on those guys. He's 125 points total and can smite your pants off. So there is that.
Stupid sword. Gosh.
125, almost sounds expensive when we have some really, really good generic HQ characters that we can use that fit, in the 75 to 90 point range. But, when you factor in those psychic powers, you cannot sleep on that kind of stuff.
I agree. His Master Swordsman, like I said, the sword just gave him. Like, I get it that he's not going to use the sword, but, I'd be okay if the sword just had some kind of, innate power that just came out. He didn't have anything to do with it. It just was,
If he's I would rather have seen
wink,
the sword
nudge, nudge.
give the sword, give him some sort of little buff, and then have him using something else. But don't give us stats for the black blade and like he's using it, and then make it terrible.
But that's what it's got a lot of meaning for the fact that he isn't using its power, and I'm sure it is very powerful. I'm sure it's an amazing sword.
Yeah, I know that they talk about, like, there's some very interesting things that they talk about with that sword. One of the things, like, well, why doesn't he just keep it in a sheath and then use something else? Well, because it jumps out and tries to sneak away. It's alive. It even, apparently, it has some kind of grudge against the Skull Taker even. So lots of interesting things with that blade.
Give it a neg 1 AP, man.
That's all I'm saying.
A neg 1? I mean,
you don't have to use its power for it to be sharp, Chris.
You don't even need something to be sharp to cut through stuff. I mean, he just swings it really, really hard.
Dude's a strong guy. He's got to work out. I mean, he's a space marine. Hey, put a little force behind it, just...
He can't, but that's not what he's for. He's meant to get up there, mix it up, hold down a section, support some other squads, and smite like nobody's business. And then the brother captain. Now I'm jumping around. Stern is in here still. Character model still. The brother captain has that ability to where friendly Grey Knight units within 6 inches of any brother captain manifest the smite power, double its range. Now that will come up later.
That will be really good in conjunction with a few other things.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a support character, which is cool. Now, I mean, I know we were just kind of negging on Crow there for a minute, but the fact that they've layered in all these different support roles in the support, in the various ranks of characters, like in the Space Marine side, you've got the lieutenants, various whatever, you got all the different ranks. And I think that's a neat thing.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this for Crow. When he gets on the table, you do have to deal with him. You can't, it's like you look at him and you're like, well, he's not that great in combat and stuff, but he doesn't have to get there. If he gets close to you in the psychic phase, you're really going to hate life because
he's going to make up.
Yeah, he ain't going to do a whole lot in that combat phase, but it doesn't matter if you're dead before you get to it. So,
well, things like the brother captain are going to help you with some of these. There's going to be other smite powers we talk about that have a very short range, and if you can even buy yourself one more round of smiting, it really adds up when you've got so many that you can fire off.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Now, for like Green Knight new stuff, though, are there any new models or any new kits that are associated with this book that we think people could keep an eye out for?
Sort of. The cool things in here is that the Stormhawk Interceptor and the Storm Talon are officially in the Grey Knight Codex, taken as Grey Knight choices.
Stunned silence.
Well, that's neat, right? I mean, I know that we're playing in a world where Imperial Soup is still very active, and you can take different things from different codexes and build them into, or what would the index and will eventually be codexes, and build them into different or the same detachment. But having these choices innately in the codexes, I think, is going to have long-term benefits, and just the fact that they're opening it up where you didn't have that option before, I think, is really pretty neat.
That is pretty cool. It helps with that immersion thing. And everybody who has painted a quote-unquote Grey Knight, Storm Talon, or Stormhawk suddenly feels extremely vindicated.
Well, it gives us hope for the Blood Angels, too. Because
despite having no Vindicators.
They still can't take that stuff. At least not inherently in Blood Angels. But I think Blood Angels, Storm Talons, and Storm Hawks and stuff look neat.
Red is a great color on a lot of fast things.
They've even been in certain books that we've talked about from certain authors already.
Yes. Speaking of.
Well, it just never made sense to me why they would come out with a new unit. When the Centurions came out, for instance, back in 7th, the Centurions come out and everybody's like, oh, cool. And then here's Blood Angels, Space Wolves, and Dark Angels. We're all just sitting around wondering why we didn't get them.
Well,
because they're ugly.
Yeah, but you want distinction between the different armies. You want them to have distinctiveness. Is really what you want. So I get that, and there's even neat storyline reasons why the Blood Angels and Mars don't get along. They go all the way back to the original printing of the Second Imperial Armor book, to where the Baal Predator wasn't created on Baal. The Blood Angels took it And when the AdMech showed up to get it, they were like, sorry, this is ours now, and we're not giving it back to you. And that created this friction between the two factions.
Sounds like the Blood Angels are a bunch of jerks, Paul. I really don't understand why you two like these guys. I'm kind of on Mars's side there.
Look, if you have an affinity for assault cannons and the AdMech tell them you can't have them,
Well, I'm sure they would have given them a
very
nice lease option or
forward-thinking.
something.
They're very forward thinking. Just look at what Gilliman and Belisarius Cawl have done for Imperial ingenuity. I'm 99% sure that the mechanic was just like, this looks hard, I don't want to do it myself.
Well, it's like, you guys may not remember this, but like when AT&T broke up the first time, and then features like call waiting and call forwarding came out, that wasn't an accident. It was like, some different people in the game now. Let's
You heard it here first.
let's breaking up that AdMech monopoly.
Yeah. The Noosphere basically got rid of Microsoft's monopoly. The Noosphere is the Apple of the 41st millennium.
Oh my gosh.
Look, I'm just telling you, Call's been sitting on it for a while.
I give up.
Just waiting. So strike squads, the weapon options, the sub things you can sub out for the Nemesis Force Sword, like the staff and the halberd and the falchions and stuff, are now. I think they are in the index. They're basically free to sub out.
I think they are.
You can sub them out. So it is the falchion, the halberd, the sword, and the stave are free to sub out. You have to pay for the demon hammer.
That's fair. I'm okay with
That seems reasonable.
Well,
Those
there's still a
hammers.
reason to take the Force Sword, it being D3 damage and neg 3. And I think that the halberd, it gives you additional strength, but it's only neg 2, if I remember right. And that's the same way with the falchion. They are still D3 damage, though, but, save more often.
I don't hate that. I think that neg -2 is a pretty decent and a reasonable AP modifier, especially in exchange for a +1 strength.
Well, what I like is it gave them somewhere to go. By putting the power sword a neg 3, there's a bunch of different different directions you can go to give variation in the weapons, to give a real strategy around what you took. You're not we talked about this before, but you're not just taking the power axe anymore. Now there really is a choice.
Well, they're all situationally fantastic, and they're all still solid. That's what I like about them, is you don't feel like, especially as a new player coming into the hobby, and they're like, oh, those halberds look cool, I'm going to put them in my army. He's not getting screwed over because he put the wrong piece of plastic on his model. They're all solid, and me personally, I like those halberds a lot because the halberds are +1 strength. So when you're going up against other Marines and stuff, you're hitting on or you're wounded on 3s, and then if you give yourself hammer hand, you're wounded on 2s with those things. So you're going to do work. I like them.
Agreed. There's the common trend here of breaking out the banner bearers into their own separate single-man units. That continues here with the Brotherhood Ancient, and I think there is a Paladin Ancient also. There is a relic banner that we'll talk about here in a minute that is very strong, at least in my opinion anyway. But for the Brotherhood Ancient here, is that any Grey Knight units, infantry units, specifically infantry units, within 6 inches of the Sacred Banner, when they fight, make 1 additional attack that phase.
That doesn't seem bad.
That. That's good. What's the difference between the Brotherhood Ancient and the Paladin Ancient?
I think about 20 points. No, I'm just kidding.
A 2 up to 3 up, I'm imagining is...
The Paladin Ancient has 1 additional attack and hits on a 2+. The Brotherhood hits on a 3+.
Okay.
But their banners are the same.
Okay.
Paladin
Interesting.
Ancient, has the 5+ invulnerable. So does the Brotherhood Ancient. So I guess it is just the weapon skill, the attacks.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I'm pretty hot on the idea of ancients in general. I've been working on lists that incorporate them in some of their strengths, specifically because I'm painting commissions. But when I have a bunch of models that have washes drying, I'll pick up one of mine just to sneak 30 seconds in while that wash is drying, or however long. It's very dry out here in the desert, so washes drying doesn't take very long. But I've been working up a Sanguinary Guard Ancient because Paul and I were talking about the way that they built the Sanguinary Guard. Or Sanguinary Guard are now minimum squad 4. I feel like this guy's supposed to be the 5th.
Yeah.
And it works.
Well,
Yeah, and I mean, I like them. I like that they're... When I first pulled when I first got the index and started with my Deathwing and like my Ancient and my Apothecary were their own dudes, it felt really wrong at first because, we've never done that in however long I've been in the hobby. So it takes a little getting used to, but you can position them a little, when you need to break them off and get them to another unit or just reposition them and stuff. It gives them a lot more flexibility. They're not married to that squad. So I like that. And I like that the sniper rule becomes a lot more interesting. If they were just in that squad, you'd have to burn through that whole squad, sniper or no. But, the fact that we have sniper weapons are so important now. I think snipers are super important to the game, and having those as those ancients and the apothecaries and all that stuff by themselves, snipers trying to take them out and stuff. I think that's a really exciting element to the game now.
It does. It adds some more strategy, and I think it takes a little getting used to, but it is definitely something that you have to play around or play with and play into or play against. Your choice.
Yeah. And I think a new player has an advantage on us old heads on this because, here we are trying to like keep them with the squad, and some newer player, he's not married to that old way of thinking about the game. So they've kind of got us there as far as coming into 8th edition.
What I love about the single individual characters that can do things is if you have the full Death Blossom in effect, you can just put them where you need them and they can be safe. But if they need to go out and assassinate somebody, they can just go off and do that.
Yeah, you equip them right. They could do a lot of damage to a vehicle. Vehicles are really strong right now. And if there's a cheap way or that you can tack on to something that gives it a dual purpose role to maybe take out the last wound on a predator or a dreadnought or something, that's good. And a lot of these characters have that type of option.
I was half joking with my buddy when I told him to just take a whole army of apothecaries, of Grey Knight apothecaries, because you could do that. But I mean, think about it. Like, here's these guys, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, swinging a 4 sword, 2 up armor, 5 up invul, and then they've got the Narthesium. So they take some wounds, they heal themselves, or they heal their buddy beside them, and so they're just healing themselves the whole
like
game.
A daisy
and then
chain of gene seed protecting or whatever.
And then they just Gate of Infinity anywhere. I need to be on that objective. Okay, well, he'll Gate of Infinity there, and the rest of us will hold it down over here, and it would just be a nightmare to deal with. I mean, I got to shoot them with the las cannon. What else can I do? You got to pop them in one turn, or they're going to heal themselves up.
Oh man, I got to tell you, this on Tuesday, I'm playing a game against my buddies, World Eaters, and Corbulo charges in to finish off like 2 Chaos Marines, some Khorne Berserkers that are there. He hits on 2s, 5 attacks. I'm thinking, yeah, he's got it locked down. AP -1 on his Strength 5 sword. Yeah, sure, he'll be fine. He whiffs 4 out of 5 of his attacks and fails to wound. And then he takes 2 rounds of Zerker combat because they swing twice, yeah? And the great thing about Corbulo is you get to re-roll 1 of his dice per turn. So I did that, kept him alive, and then did it again on the next turn, and then after I killed them, I healed myself.
Nice.
He was down to 1 wound. He's like, you know what? I'm good. He just kind of like gives himself a shot of adrenaline, and he's good to go.
Oh, man. Well, there you go. Pack a bunch of apothecaries. There are some common things here in this book, and that is stuff like Stormbolters are everywhere. You can combat squad just like they were regular Space Marines, even though they're shinier and more psychically inclined. And things like the Inceptor squad have the personal teleporter that allow them to shunt. It's essentially like you can redeploy them at any point during the game. They have to be more than 9 inches away from any enemy model. They can do that once per game. There is a stratagem that we'll talk about later that lets them do that again. So you could burn the stratagem and shunt those guys twice.
Okay, that's
during
cool.
the game. I don't know why you do it, twice in a row in the same phase, but whatever, you could. I think you could if you wanted. But the value.
Now I'm trying to figure out in my head why you would do that. Yeah, I like that because I was looking at the interceptors before, and it's like, okay, once, all right, well, I'll just take a Razorback and use a strike squad and save myself the points. But
maybe
being able to
seek and destroy objectives, you pop 2 or something. I don't know. I don't think that's the way it's worded in the objective. I just say I don't think there's a reason why you would do it twice in the same turn.
We'll figure it out later.
Right. So then we get into the vehicles and the Dread Knight. The Dread Knight, I have a couple of like incredibly converted ones. I did not do them. They were done by buddies of mine. They look awesome. But the original pose has grown on me.
Are you sure it has, or have you just given
well, maybe
up?
Because I've got the context. It wouldn't be 3 standing in the row over on my side. I'd have 1 kneeling down, 1 jumping through a wall, and that guy just standing there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, when you break up the monotony of it, it's much cooler.
Larry, Curly, and Moe.
Could be. These things are awesome. They get tons of shots with their weapons. I mean, heavy 12 on the Gatling silencer.
I like the Gatling silencer. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's amazing, but when you've got Drago standing there with you, and they all hit pretty much, they're all going to hit with Drago standing there, and then each one of those shots, they're D3, right? When
it's
they go
D3
through
damage, but it's only strength 4.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They're D3 damage, and it's a bajillion shots going through. So something's going to get through. And when it gets through, it's going to cause damage. And that's what I like about it. Is I feel like it's a little underrated because it's only strength 4. But gosh, you got to be toughness 8 before it goes to 6s. So even on
that's fair.
5s, you're potentially going to do some work to something. You could hit a dreadnought with that Gatling silencer and drop it, in a turn, easy.
I mean,
I like it.
They can even do a lot of damage to knights. I mean, again, it only takes a couple to get through, and then you're starting to put up. You could easily take a vehicle from one damage category to another with that many shots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go over the profile with me one more time, just to make sure I have it right.
On a Dread Knight?
For the
on the Gatling silencer.
24-inch range, heavy 12, strength 4, no AP, D3 damage.
And you're reading out of the index.
Okay.
That's the same as is in the Codex too.
When I built my first Dread Knight, I put the silencer on there because I thought it was the coolest looking gun, because that was the place I was in my life at that point.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
Nope.
And I kind of feel like I'm vindicated in having it that way.
Look, here's the thing. You shouldn't have even felt bad about it in 7th edition, because that was a force weapon. I've never seen somebody pucker up so bad as when his freaking flying demon prince come at my buddy, and he turned a Gatling silencer on him. And
my allied Grey Knight started in like early 6th, so technically I was too late to be on the bandwagon.
Well, here's a tip for you folks. The weapons are designed in a way that they don't have to be glued on. You could easily just blue tack them to the wrist. They just, because all the weapons are their own housings, they're built their own way. You could, and what I use anyway, I just simply blue tack them on the wrist.
A classic person might use a magnet.
Yes, I was just about to say. I was like, in the ghetto.
Let me tell you about the point in my life is I don't like drilling on models. If I can avoid
Fair
it.
enough.
Now, it depends.
Fair enough.
It depends on what it needs. Some things you have to mag. Some things you have to peg. This you don't. With the way it has enough surface area that you could just put whatever gun you want with poster tack.
Well, don't those piston things on it? It kind of helps hold them in there too. So it's they're
Anyway,
good.
I'm saying you got options with the kit. Razorbacks, Rhinos, Stormhawk interceptors, Storm Talon gunships, pretty much the same. I think they are exactly the same, because it's very important to know that, or to remember that the Grey Knight vehicles don't get the psychic powers anymore.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, fair or not, I think it was something that this is probably a balance issue. I mean, when you had all vehicles shaking off stun on themselves, and if they could all smite, if you get a Rhino smiting and stuff, it would probably be very annoying.
Yeah, that would get a little ridiculous. It just kind of strikes me as funny. A lot of people like to draw comparisons between the Grey Knights and the Thousand Suns, an all Psyker chapter. And in the Thousand Suns book, in the Horus Heresy, talks about them flying the airplanes, and the divination guys giving heads up to a pilot, hey, jink to the left here, and then they'll jink, and then something will explode right where they were. And I always kind of figured some kind of mechanic like that for Grey Knight flyers would be neat. In Death from the Skies, actually, I believe they had some kind of precog thing for the Grey Knight wing leader traits or something like that. So that would have been neat to see here, just as a character bit. That maybe, that's not a dangerous thing. It's more of a survivability thing. But, at least they've got them.
I wouldn't rule that kind of thing out for stuff down the road. I mean, with the way that like stratagems and stuff are going to be introduced, I think through the game, there's going to be some in every codex. But I'd bet my last dollar that they're going to release more, and that's the kind of fluff and flavor that will come along with them. Now, I'm not saying you get that exact thing. I'm saying that that's the kind of stuff I think we'll see in the future. Okay, so getting into the actual rules of the army, there, the Hammer of Demons is one of their monikers here.
That sounds impressive.
Yep. If your army is battle-forged, all Psychers in the Grey Knight detachment gain this ability. You add 1 to Psychic test and deny the Witch rolls taken for such a unit.
Oh, that's really good. As if Smite needed to be easier.
Well, the deny is strong there. I mean, that's actually pretty good when you got some of these characters that can deny 2 and 3 times.
Well, doesn't that also benefit, protecting you from mortal wounds from, say, Perils of the Warp? If I'm understanding psychic powers correctly.
Add 1 to the psychic test and deny. No, Perils of the Warp is if you roll a 12 or ones or snake eyes.
So it's just the die facing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe that is the case.
Unless it works, because then orcs have the weird stuff that's going on. Because weird boys.
We're going to see this come up more often, I think. If your army is battle-forged, all troops in the Grey Knights detachment gain the ability, the Knights of Titan. Such a unit that is within range of an objective marker controls that objective marker even if there are more enemy models within range of that objective marker. So the Grey Knights, with their marine bodies, get what is pretty much objective secured.
You know what I like about this? Is it gives people a reason to bring more troops. And I think that's an excellent balancing factor that will help mitigate some of the spam problems that people are getting frustrated with.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, in my head it would, but at the same time it's like, when that Razorback's pumping out 1 million shots into that 5-man squad, they ain't going to be there long enough to hold the objective. But it's definitely
can't be obsec when you're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But good mission design for people that if you publish your missions beforehand, look, like I said, we actually published the Forge Narrative missions. You can find them up on forgenarrative.net. I'll include them in the show notes here. Rick, you're one of several organizers that ran those missions over the past weekend at a tournament, and hopefully that helped see some good, robust, different looking armies on the table because they were trying to win the game.
I don't want to brag, but they went pretty okay, man. They went real smoothly. After the event, we even told people, I said, look, guys, be brutally honest. Hit me with whatever feedback you got so I can send it to Paul. And all I got back was, you had a typo in there, Paul. For shame. It was literally grammatical.
It was probably my fault.
Yeah. So it was actually, I don't think it was, Chris, because I think the one I got was before you did a once over on it. But
okay, then I fully give Paul the blame.
Paul can take the credit on that.
My reputation is preserved.
Yeah, but the point is, out of everybody there, what the feedback we got back about improvements was literally grammatical errors. So so everybody liked them. They were fun. They were easy. And the thing is, they were easy to understand too. They weren't some overly complex thing, but it was good mission design. And we had quite a bit of variety in lists, and I think everybody felt like they were in it. So I was happy with them.
That's cool. I think that some of the feedback we got from other places were just suggesting different missions to add to the pack. And we will definitely do that, as we get in feedback from more people that are playing. And I mean this, the reason that the last mission pack we did for 6th edition was so successful was because of how often they were played and the feedback we got from everyone, and where it makes sense and where it still preserves the scope and the idea of the missions, we will incorporate that feedback. So looking to hear it from folks that are out there. I don't want to sidetrack us off on that, but there are objectives in the mission, and having something that's objective secured, I think, is strong. Like right now, conscripts don't have this. Poxwalkers don't have this. So your last strike squad guy can be holding down against a bunch of Poxwalkers and get that Emperor's Will.
It's just assumed, right, that after the game ends, he's just going to keep going at it till they're dead.
That's exactly right. That's the way the movie ends. It fades to black with him just hacking down whatever infidel is hanging out.
This is going to take forever. Just cut the commercial.
6 Warlord traits specific to the Grey Knights in here. The named characters have bespoke Warlord traits assigned to them. So, for instance, Grandmaster Voldus has the Lore Master Warlord trait. Your Warlord knows 1 additional psychic power from the Santic discipline.
I need that guy.
Gosh, he already knows 3, right?
Well, now he's got 1 more.
It's like there's 2 that he doesn't have.
There's a stratagem that lets you cast an extra psychic power. So this guy could cast 4 psychic powers in a turn.
Can't use the same one twice, though, correct?
Yes, 4 different.
I don't think there's any exception to that.
And
So,
there's stuff that mostly benefits the Warlord, like the Nemesis Lord here, which is kind of neat. You can add 1 to the damage characteristic of your Warlord's melee weapon, unless you're a special character. If your Warlord wields a Relic of Titan that is a melee weapon, choose another Warlord trait or re-roll this result.
So if Drago can't use it because he's a special
if your Warlord
character.
wields a Relic of Titan that is a melee weapon, choose another Warlord trait.
Got it. Okay, so basically anybody that's got some super hot weapon
If you have a named weapon or you
okay.
picked a relic from the relics later on, then you need to pick another Warlord trait.
That thing's still solid, though. You know, you're rocking out a Thunderhammer. It's, 3 damage? So that becomes 4 damage on a Thunderhammer?
Yeah, man, Matt, you might as well just pick the relic that does 4 damage on his Thunderhammer, though.
Oh.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But you could have another guy doing something, doing similar. I mean, have some Bash Brothers going on.
Yeah. Goodness.
You can,
2 of those guys coming at you?
First to the fray. You can reroll failed charge rolls for your Warlord or friendly Grey Knight units that are within 6 inches of him at the start of the charge phase. That's a pretty good Warlord trait.
Yeah, especially with Gate of Infinity.
And Dread Knights and...
Ugh.
I don't hate that.
Yeah.
No, nor should you.
Yeah.
Well, until I receive it.
Right. Until someone goes, oh wait, let me check my rule right here. Yeah.
I forgot I had this trait. Crap.
I get to do that.
Hey, why didn't you remind me about that? I forgot too. Yeah.
We go to the stratagems. That's the next thing in the book. There are fewer stratagems than in the Space Marine book, but there's still like 15 or so over here. I mean, there's a bunch, and some of them are similar to the Space Marines. Some of them are the exact same in the Space Marines. Like tactical flexibility, that's the one that lets you combat squad later in the game if you wanted to.
Which is really neat. I like that.
If the model has 10 models.
I think that's even better for Grey Knights, though, because Marines typically they're going to be there. They're not getting across the table, halfway through the game. But you could knock that out turn 5, and boom, half your army Gates of Infinity over and gets on a late game objective. That could be really fun for Grey Knights.
Here's one that's pretty exciting. This is Heed the Prognosticars.
Well, that's not a mouthful.
Use the stratagem at the start of your turn. Pick a Grey Knight character and add 1 to his invulnerable saving throw until the start of your next turn.
What?
Ooh, that could be clutch.
That's 2 command points. It's 2 command points.
Dang.
That's a heavy investment with an army like this, because this is not an army that you're going to be getting a brigade out of.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you're trying to save your Warlord. Let's say you got Drago. All right, people are going to be gunning for him. If you know that if you just need to weather the shots with a 2+ invulnerable save, I don't know why you wouldn't burn that. That seems like a good combat or command point investment.
I'll take a 2-up for an entire turn over 1 reroll a phase. 2 rerolls. You tell me that's a bargain, really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but now granted, this is something that you like. To what your point earlier is that you're not going to have a lot of slots filled because these things are probably more expensive. So you're probably only going to have 6, maybe 8 command points. And so late game, you probably won't have them to save to burn on this. So just burn them in the early part of the game and make people hate Drago even more.
There you go.
Now, can you imagine just the sheer morale disruption that would come from having Drago gate behind the enemy, close to several things that he could really mess up, and then give him a 2-up invulnerable, and he's just out there by himself, right? So it's like, do I spend my entire army trying to shift this guy?
Yeah.
Or do I ignore him and try and kill the other things and hope that he doesn't just wreck me the next turn?
Right. Yeah, you do have to use it at the start of your turn. So if you went second, you'd still be vulnerable. But still, I think.
And it's good for the entire turn
until your next turn. Yeah.
Okay, so it's good for my turn and his turn. Nice.
Yes, until the start of your next turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. There's Cybold Ammunition, which is kind of cool. Use the stratagem before a Grey Knight unit shoots. The strength and armor penetration characteristics of any bolt guns, storm bolters, heavy bolters, hurricane bolters are improved by 1.
What? Please say that's 1 command point.
It's 2 command points.
Oh,
But there's also this is what you're not going to have any. Just look. Just get used to burning your command points.
yeah.
Because this is good stuff. There's also a psychic onslaught where you increase the strength and armor penetration characteristics of any Gatling silencers, heavy psi cannons, silencers, and psi cannons. There you go.
That sounds
By
mean.
improved by 1. Yeah.
Oh no!
So a silencer would go strength 5, -1 AP.
You imagine doing that against like knights. You have a bunch of those. You shoot it at a knight. It doesn't matter if only like 4 or 5 get through. That knight's going to be hitting a little bit less hard the next turn.
Yeah. There is an honor of the chapter, which is 3 command points. Again, you're not going to. You're never going to do everything we've just mentioned in one game. Or at least not in one normal point game. 2000.
Well, that's the beauty of command points. They're situational.
Yep.
So that's the beauty. You don't have to build your list, with this one thing in mind, and you're a one-trick pony every time. That's the beauty of command points in 8th edition is you are now going to have more flexibility, and if you are, a savvy enough player, you're going to know when to apply pressure, using this ability in this situation and get the win out of it. And they're great. It's going to be really neat. Me, I'm going to forget them every single time. But, somebody good at 40K is going to, really have fun with that
eating
stuff.
lunch. Like, oh, man, I could have honored the chapter.
Yeah. 3 hours later, you're like, no!
Well, honor the chapter lets you fight again. A Grey Knight infantry unit can immediately fight for a second time. Use as at the end of any fight phase.
Yeah, not hating that.
So, can I activate them and then use that and activate them again, or does it?
Yeah, use the stratagem at the end of the fight phase, then that unit immediately fights again.
Whew, man,
like a bunch of paladins with thunderhammer with demon hammers.
That could do some work. Goodness,
you have to make the gong sound after you activate that.
What's that cost? 3 command points?
It's 3, yeah.
Of course it is. Golly, though, man, that would be clutch. Golly. Yeah, I don't hate that one. I'll save 3 command points just for that, just to watch somebody's face.
Yeah, I think it's good. And then there's only in Death to the End. That's the 1 command point where you can shoot again. Before removing the battlefield, that model can immediately either shoot as if for the shooting phase or fight as if for the fight phase. So that's 1 Grey Knight character can fight.
So that's for characters only, then.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yep. These are all good stuff. And then when I was talking about the teleportation boost, you can use a shunt for an interceptor squad again. So there's value in that, I think, especially if you've gone up to secure an objective and need to get somewhere else. But there's also, this is a neat one, the teleportarium. Use this stratagem during deployment. You can set up a friendly Grey Knight infantry unit or Grey Knight dreadnought in a teleportarium chamber instead of placing it on the battlefield. And then you can come down 9 inches away.
Who needs dreadnought drop pods when you can just zap?
For 1 command point, yeah. But see, this is the debate that I've seen. Is the deployment one of the phases where you can only use 1 of these? Can you do it for multiples?
I think that's a fair question. My instinctual answer would be no, deployment's not a phase. But
I don't know. I mean, because you should only be able to use it once per phase. But
I hope the answer is you can use it multiples, because I've got a bunch of Centurion assault squads I want to make into Raven Guard. but I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I feel like it goes against what they're, like it's one of those things, intent versus written. The intent feels like these things are not to be used more than once a phase. I mean, or that's written, but it feels like they're meant to be more like onesie twosie kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like intent is no, but written, ask your local TO.
I mean, if you want to make sure that nobody ever uses Honor of the Chapter, allow this to be used multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but I don't know what the answer is. I'm not trying to influence the answer either. I think that the intent is probably to be able to use it multiple times. But let me tell you how wrong I was when we were talking about intent on the previous show about using indexes in relation to the codexes, and how maybe the index might not supersede the codex and vice versa. There's the Warhammer community article gives you some at least direction on that. I don't know if it completely answers it, but I gave a definitive opinion that is wrong. So I want to say that I don't want to necessarily talk about intent until we know more about the edition.
Right, and there are some very practical reasons for that opinion. I still personally prefer the idea of just use the most current stuff. Just speaking as a TO, the logistics involved with, okay, so are using the cost of the Thunderhammer from this or that and the mix and match and the blah, blah, blah. I don't want to deal with that. But I imagine that that's going to get clarified because any of those other things just look at what happened with flyers, for example. I have a strong suspicion that GW is going to make that crystal clear for us.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's cool. I mean, they obviously have their pulse on the community and have an active channel for people to give feedback through their Facebook pages and email addresses. And I advise people to use that. I mean, it's an open line of communication, and there are people on the other end that are like, I wouldn't expect that your opinion of whatever is going to make its way to the page, or to the page of these rule books. But I think you can take it for granted that it will be considered and weighed against the intent of the outcome.
Yeah, my opinion mainly just comes out of laziness. I don't want to have to reference 15 books. It's just like, newest only, please, and then move on with my life.
The Relics of Titan, there's a couple of cool ones here. There's the Destroyer Chrysalix. That is the Demon Hammer that is damage 4. -3 AP, damage 4.
Man, that is terrifying.
It replaces, you have to have, there's no points for this, for the relic. It replaces something, so you have to have a Nemesis Demon Hammer, and then you could replace it. A character, someone who's eligible to get a relic, could replace his Demon Hammer with this.
But he doesn't have to have a Demon Hammer, right?
He does.
It says he does.
Yes, the model with Nemesis Demon Hammers only can replace it with a relic. That's what relics do now. Okay. Is that they're either something you can just give to one character, and there's a stratagem that lets you buy multiple different relics. But
we did have to look that up and make sure.
Well, I'll tell you why in a second. I mean, we just clarified, and that's what this is all about, is trying to put it all together. But the relics either replace a piece of equipment, and some of it replaces the chain sword, on a Space Marine or something. Mm-hmm. This replaces the Demon Hammer, and sometimes it is just give them. Like the Black Templar have a special helmet that extends an aura that you just give someone. So make sure that you've met the prerequisites. That's another kind of thing that could be a tournament gotcha. What if you never bought the chainsword that you upgraded to the relic because you weren't thinking about it? Now, I know most chainswords are free. That's a bad example. But if you didn't buy the Demon Hammer, then your list is going to have some problems. But it's still neg 1 to hit. But it's otherwise a Demon Hammer with 4 damage.
I'll take it. I'll still take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's two wounds as a dead dreadnought.
Yeah. The Banner of Refining Flame. This is what we thought about. Wouldn't it be awesome to have about 6 of these?
Oh, my gosh.
You can't. Obviously, because of the rule we just said. But the Paladin Ancient or Brotherhood Ancient only. That means those are guys that come with the banner, all right? The Banner of the Refining Flame is a sacred banner. And believe me, it will be as soon as you hear this. Models equipped with this banner loses the rights of banishment ability. Instead, when the bearer manifests the Smite psychic power, it only has a range of 6 inches, but it inflicts D6 mortal wounds instead of D3.
Gosh.
Regardless if you roll 10 or more. It's just always D6. Now it's a 6-inch range, but we were talking earlier about things that extend the range of the Smite ability, like that Brother Captain.
Exactly, that's right.
That's not a bad combo, and that's kind of easy combo to get because there's utility in the banner already.
Yeah, I mean the banner's already good. Having the brother captain is good as well. I mean, it's just doing D6 mortal wounds off of that ancient. And it just looks awesome in your army anyway, having that ancient rocking out that banner. And now he's just going to hit you at 12 inches for D6 mortal wounds, and he'll be hidden behind some Terminators or something, so you can't shoot him anyway. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
All these extra characters throwing smites around is just mortal wounds for you, and mortal wounds for you.
This army
mortal
has
wounds
a lot of
for
mortal
you.
Wounds in it.
Well, before it was
the psychic powers in a second. The Santic Discipline is back with full effect.
Yeah, and it was before it was like, okay, yeah, everybody's smiting, but it's one, and it whittles you down, and you just deal with it. You're taking 1 mortal wound per, and you when you play against Grey Knights, you got to try to position where you think he's going to be or position where he's coming, so you can put the right model up there to soak up those mortal wounds. And now it's like you put that model up there and you're not taking 3 and 4 mortal wounds. You're taking 4 mortal wounds, and then you're getting hit with D6 mortal wounds from here. You're getting hit from D3 from the librarian, and then heaven forbid Crow gets close to you as well. I mean, think about that. You jump Crow, that ancient, and what is it? The Purifier squads that do the D6.
Purifiers have the same flame as Crow. Yeah.
Think about that, man. That's like 3 D6. Heaven forbid you combat squad those Purifiers.
I think they've got like a 3-inch range though, or something.
But it's doubled. It's doubled.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
That dude. So you jump out of a Land Raider with Crow, ancient, and Purifier squad. Bye. I mean,
don't do that. Do that with a Storm Raven. Yeah.
Even better. So,
do that with a Storm Raven, because then after they're done dishing out the mortal wounds, then they're gonna shoot you.
Yeah, I mean it's good. I mean it's really good. Oh, and guess what? It's easier to smite with Grey Knights now. Oh, it's, they need a 4. They need a 4 to get it off, and you better hope you can counter some of that. That's going to be a lot of mortal wounds. I don't care how many Imperial Knights you bring. 4d6 mortal wounds in your face. Yeah,
that's a lot on survivable bodies.
Exactly.
The Sanity Discipline. This is Purge Soul. That's the one where both controlling players roll a die, add the respective leadership value. If the target's total is equal or greater, the psychic nothing happens. If the psyker's total is greater, then the target suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the difference.
Situationally, very good. Unfortunately, my buddy plays against my Custodes all the time, and he never rolls higher than a 2. And literally, and I'm not even exaggerating in any way, in 3 games now of 8th edition, he has caused 2 mortal wounds to me.
Well, when you got like Voldus, let's think about Voldus just rattling off all these powers a turn.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, like he's with that power, and that's what we were talking about is Purge Soul is junk against high leadership units. And if you got an elite army with high leadership, you're just not going to do a whole lot. But my goodness, you get them up against some conscripts, get them up against Tau guard, this stuff. It's like leadership 5, 6, maybe 7. You're causing mortal wounds. It's almost impossible not to at that point. So, and that's on top of smite. So you smite them, you purge soul, and then you go into the rest of your repertoire. So it is good, but it is situationally good.
You have a lot of threats that you eat up the opponent's denies.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the ones you could chase out a deny. Now maybe they let it go, and then maybe you do 5 mortal wounds to them.
Yeah, and that's a good point. But it's also going to depend. If they're high leadership, throw that thing out there first and make them nibble at it and make them try to get rid of it. But if they're low leadership, throw the smite out there and then hit them with the Purge Soul and cause a ton of it. So yeah, good point.
Gate of Infinity. That's the one that lets you pick a Grey Knight unit within 12 inches. Redeploy them 9 inches away from the enemy.
It's the jump for shiny.
It is my favorite. Yeah,
Hammer
it is my
Hand,
favorite.
add 1 to any wound rolls you make for that unit's melee weapons until the start of the psyche phase.
Can we talk about how much better that is this edition versus 7th? Because before it was just +1, +2 strength. Now it's just
+2 this last edition, I think.
Yeah, and now it's just add 1 to your wound roll, right? Yeah, wound roll. Yeah. So it's if you're hitting on 4s, it doesn't matter. Or a better
the
example.
Toughness doesn't matter anymore. Now
toughness doesn't matter. It's automatically you're just hitting 1 better.
So if you're in that magic band where you woon everything on 5s, then now you're winning everything on 4s. And if your weapon's doing D3 damage,
it's in there. Yeah,
it adds up.
And I had my buddy hitting my Land Raider, and he was wounded on 3s against my Land Raider with his little infantry dudes, and I was like, "This is wrong." And he loved it. I didn't, but
yeah.
I am a big fan of Hammerhand now.
Sanctuary. This is pretty good. If manifested, pick a friendly Grey Knight unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. That unit gives a 5+ invulnerable save until the start of your next Psychic phase. If any model in that target unit already have an invulnerable save, add 1 to any invulnerable saving throws you make for them until the start of your next Psychic phase instead.
Well, there we go. We don't have to use the 2 command points. We just give Drago that.
Yep. If manifested, pick within 12 inches. That's pretty strong.
That's really good.
Yeah, just do that one before you teleport him over somewhere.
Yeah, hit him with it, and then Gate of Infinity him across the table. There you go. And Gate of Infinity. Gate of Infinity. Now it's you cast it on. You can cast it on any Grey Knight, so you don't have to cast it on yourself. So Voltus can stand there, Super Saiyan up Drago, and then send him across the board to do the Emperor's work. So, cool.
Yeah,
you go do the thing.
You do the thing. I'll keep talking about how great you are over here.
Astral Aim. If manifested, pick a friendly Grey Knight unit within 18 inches. Until your next psychic phase, the unit you picked is able to target enemy units that are not visible to them.
They
don't gain any cover. Cover bonus.
Cover bonus and don't need line of sight, right?
Yep.
How many weapons do you think? Well, in an age where people are modifying terrain rules, like the first level of terrain, etc., ruins or whatever, that can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think that's very situational, but it has a use because you pick a Grey Knight unit within 18 inches, and then that unit can shoot. So if it has longer range weapons, like for instance, I don't know, maybe it's a Dreadnought with las cannons or something, or I don't know, pick the most heinous thing out of Imperial armor or whatever. It then gets to fire its full range.
Yeah, it's situationally awesome. There's going to be games where that's not going to do a lot for you, but there's going to be other games where you got that Eversur assassin setting up in the ruins, popping rounds at you, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter that he's got that +2 to his cover.
And as if we weren't done talking about mortal wounds, I want to talk to you about Vortex of Doom. Is it more mortal wounds?
Please say yes.
If manifested, the vortex opens above the nearest visible enemy model within 12 inches of the Psyker. That model's unit and every other unit within 3 inches of that model suffers D3 mortal wounds.
Lord in heaven. And you misspoke when you named it, Paul. You're not done?
I'm not done.
Oh my gosh.
The number of mortal wounds inflicted is increased to D6 if the power is manifested with a psychic test of 12+.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. That's
Give
why
yourself the freaking vortex of migraines.
Locally we call it the Vortex of Doom, and we make them say that when they cast it. So
especially now.
Oh my goodness. I hate Grey Knights. Also,
it's like that news host from Futurama. Doom.
I'm now on the market for Grey Knights if anybody's got an army they're willing to sell. Hey, can't beat them, join them.
There's powerful stuff. I mean, we've run through. I mean, again, we've given a fanboy's look at the Codex right now and talked a little bit about the idea, the tactics of what we would use with the highlights that we hit on. But there's a lot in here. I mean, Grey Knights, they're a small elite type force, but you got options with how you build them. I'm already seeing like full-on Dreadnought options. I've even seen builds around Crow. I mean, as much grief as we gave him earlier.
I love that we talked that much trash, and now we're like, but Crow's going in the list, right? Yeah, Crow's going in the list. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to go that far. He's going in a list. He's going in.
He's in my list. He's in my list. Yeah, he's in my list. That's all there is to it. I mean, he's going in my list. They've got flavor again. I mean, last edition, Grey Knights felt they were just not exciting, and now I feel like they've got a lot of stuff in there. They definitely feel like Grey Knights. There's definitely that fear that some psychic power is going to wreck you, and I'm excited for them. They're fun. They're fun to play against. They're neat. They're very mobile. They're shooty. They're tough, and you get to roll a lot of dice with them. So I'm all about this Codex now.
To recap, they've got initial no fear. They're demon hunters. If a unit attacks any demon in the fight phase, you can reroll failed wound rolls for those attacks. So, it's in the name. Grey Knights, they're demon hunters. We know that. They've got the rites of banishment and the teleport strike. It gives some rules on that. The units that have that. You got the extra casting benefit with the Brotherhood of Psykers rule. And then they got the Knights of Titan, which is for battle-forged armies. The troops essentially gain OBSEC plus all the stuff we've talked about.
That's a good book.
Yeah,
I like how this has brought character into the Grey Knights, and this gives me a lot of hope for Codexes because Index 40k is great. It was affordable. It let us roll the dice right away, but it really was diet factions in terms of this feels like vanilla, I'm playing. Yeah. It was no cherry on top, no nothing. This gives me a lot of hope for all the factions going forward, that there's going to be a lot of characterful, choice-driven ways to play your game, with your favorite faction.
I think what people are going to do here is, now look, there's going to be, I think, a lot of kind of the mindset of I've got to build every army with every codex that comes out. But I think if you're a fan of a particular faction and your codex comes out, you're going to be rewarded by investing in and diving deep into it. You're not going to have to chase the meta.
When 8th came out, even with just the index, but we knew the Codex was coming out, that it was going to bring the flavor and give it a lot more character. Even when it was just your index, it felt like all the units were usable again. And, you know, everything in 40K is usable now. It's all playable and it's all useful. And now that you have your Codex there with even more options and stuff, I feel like you're going to be able to spend a lot more time in your Codex without getting burnt out on it or feeling like you've done everything you can with your Codex. So over the course of, you know, this edition in your Codex, you're going to get a lot more, I think, entertainment out of it than maybe we did in the past.
Everybody hold tight. We got another codex that we're going to talk about here. We got 2 codexes this week. The next one we're going to talk about is Chaos Space Marines. So we're going to take a quick break, come back. You know, and look, we got a lot of, I'm thinking about putting some stuff on the YouTube page talking about the Space Marine chapters that we've been kind of assembling ideas from talented players around the country. So stay tuned for that. But also hang in. It's going to be, you know, the quick commercial break and then come back and talk about Chaos Space Marines.
Sweet.
Round 2.